Say it. This is the Word of God.
This is the Word of God.
And I have what it says I have.
I have what it says I have.
And I can be what it says I can be.
I can be what it says I can be.
And I can do what it says I can do.
I can do what it says I can do.
My mind is alert.
My mind is alert.
My heart is receptive.
My heart is receptive.
I'm a winner.
I'm a winner.
Not a whiner.
Not a whiner.
I'm a doer.
I'm a doer.
Not just a hearer.
Not just a hearer.
I said I'm a doer.
I'm a doer.
Not just a hearer.
Not just a hearer.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Again, the Bible says we're all a part of the body of Christ.
Thank God.
So turn to somebody 20 behind you and say, thank God you brought the rest of my life.
God loves me, so do I.
Now tell somebody, God loves you and so do I. I know you have a lot of things planned today, so we're going to try to not keep you very long. But just, I'm hoping, like I say, plant some seed this morning is really going to touch our hearts. If you will turn with me to begin with, let's turn to Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3. And we'll get into verse 1. And as you turn, the Bible said, mere heart goes good like medicine. So I got you some medicine this morning. Remember, these are just humorous stories, so please don't be offended. A clergyman walking down a country lane sees a young farmer struggling to load hay back onto a cart after it had fallen off. You look hot, my son, said the cleric. Why don't you rest a moment? I'll give you a hand. No thanks, said the young man. My father wouldn't like it. Don't be silly, the minister said. Everyone is entitled to a break. Come on and have a drink of water. Again, the young man protested his father would be upset. Losing his patience, the clergyman said, your father must be a real slave driver. Tell me where I can find him and I'll give him a piece of my mind. Well, replied the young farmer, he's under that load of hay. A man from the city is out plowing his field and gets his tractor stuck in the wet ground. A farmer driving by stops his truck and walks to the fence to call over to the city builder. You need a mule to plow such wet ground, he says. Where can I buy one, he asked. Well, I just happen to have one for $100, he said. I'll take him, says the other man, as he counts out the money. I can't bring him over today. I don't work on Sunday. Tomorrow, okay? Sure. The next day, the truck pulls up. The old farmer gets out. He says, sorry, bad news. I went out after breakfast and the mule was dead. The city fellow said, well, just give me my money back then. Can't. I spent it already. Well, unload the mule then. What's you going to do with him? Raffle him off. Now, you can't raffle off a dead mule. Just watch us. City fellers know a few tricks. 1 month goes by and the city feller and farmer run into each other at the barber shop. What'd you do with that dead mule? Raffled him off. Sold 100 tickets at $2 each and made $98 profit. Didn't anybody complain? Just one guy, so I gave him back his $2. Pretty smart. All right, last one. A small boy is sent to bed by his father. 5 minutes later, he says, Dad, what? I'm thirsty. Can you bring me a drink of water? No, you had your chance. Lights out. 5 minutes later, Dad, what? I'm thirsty. Can I have a drink of water? I told you no. If you ask again, I'll have to spank you. 5 minutes later, Dad, what? When you come to spank me, can you bring me a drink of water? Some of y'all needed that this morning. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1. I'm going to read this to you from the Living Translation. It says, my son, never forget the things I've taught you. If you want a long and satisfying life, closely follow my instructions. Never forget to be truthful and kind. Hold these virtues tightly. Write them deep within your heart. If you want favor with both God and man and a reputation for good judgment and common sense, then trust the Lord completely. Don't ever trust yourself. In everything you do, put God first, and He will direct you and crown your efforts with success. Amen. Don't be conceited, sure of your own wisdom. Instead, trust and reverence the Lord and turn your back on evil. When you do that, then you'll be given renewed health and vitality. Honor the Lord by giving Him the first part of all your income, and He will fill your barns with wheat and barley and overflow your wine vats with the finest wines. Young man, do not resent it when God chastens and corrects you, for His punishment is proof of His love. just as a father punishes a son he delights in to make him better, so the Lord corrects you. And the man who knows right from wrongs and has good judgment and common sense is happier than a man who is immensely rich. For such wisdom is far more valuable than precious jewels. Nothing else compared with it. Wisdom gives, say gives.
Yes.
Wisdom gives a long, good life, riches, honor, pleasure, and peace. Wisdom is a tree of life to those who eat her fruit, and happy is the man who keeps on eating it. So many times, especially as men, we're always working and trying to provide for our families and trying to get ahead and get better. But God says here, if you gain wisdom from my word, not earthly wisdom, but heavenly wisdom from my word, He said, all these things will be added unto you. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Now turn me to 1 Timothy 2. 1 Timothy 2. Verse 8. Like I say, we're going to be a little bit more slowed down today, so y'all bear with me. 1 Timothy 2:8 says, I will therefore that men pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without wrath and doubting. The Living Translation said, I want men everywhere to pray with holy hands lifted up to God, free from sin, anger, and resentment. You know, there was a young father-to-be, he was pacing back and forth. He was wringing his hands in a hospital corridor while his wife was in labor. He was tied up in knots of fear and anxiety. Beads of perspiration was dropping from his brow that revealed the agony that he was suffering. Finally, at 4 a.m., the nurse popped out of a door and said, well, sir, you have a little girl. He dropped his hands, became limp, and said, oh, thank God it's a girl. She'll never have to go through the awful agony that I've had to go through tonight. Sometimes church is tough being a father. And in honor of this special day, I want to speak to those who are blessed with such a great privilege. I want to look at things a little different, I said this morning, than what we normally do. Actually, I want to address not just fathers, but I want to address all men this morning. And even though this is a day when fathers usually receive a gift of some kind, I want to speak about a gift fathers should give. A very precious gift. A gift for their children, but also for themselves. You know, it's very difficult being a man in the 1990s. And the reason I think it is so difficult is because the way men were raised in generations past. Face it, the days of leave it to Beaver and Father knows best are gone. Men go places, do things, dress and act and think in ways that they never would have done when I was a kid. You know, years ago when I was a young person, it's not likely that you've seen many men with long hair tied in a ponytail and wearing an earring, unless they were a sissy, you know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not coming down against any of these things. My point is, times have changed. Men today are different in a lot of ways. And we could all make quite a list of the changes that have taken place over the past few generations. And there are many positive changes that have come about in men. But in spite of the many positive changes, there's some things about men that have changed very little. And it's been said that almost any man can father a child, but only special ones can be a dad. And I want to say this morning, that dads are special people. You know, I've had a lot of heroes over the years. Some of y'all may have the same one, the Lone Ranger. Some of y'all still old enough to remember that. John Wayne, Superman. Just to name a few. But my first hero was my dad. When I faced difficult times as a youngster, none of my other heroes could help me. But Dad was always there. He couldn't leap tall buildings with a single bound, or shoot 37 shots from a 6-shooter without reloading. But he was always there. Always caring. And I know some of you could spend hours sharing some wonderful things about your fathers. And yet there's something that was so common with that generation of men that for the most part it's been handed down throughout many generations, right down to ours today. Something that I think is the greatest disservice done to the men of this and future generations. They were taught that men never show affection or emotion or anything that would be interpreted as a weakness. Men must be strong, proud, tough. And I was raised in that generation that seldom saw men show affection to their wives. I remember seeing my dad give my mom a peck on the cheek when he left the house. But I never heard him say to her, I love you. I never saw him hold hands in public. I never remember seeing flowers or a gift without it being a birthday or Christmas. But more importantly, I never heard him talk about things that went beyond surface things. He'd talk about bills, he'd talk about the weather, he'd talk about the latest crisis in the news. I never saw my dad share his hurts or his fears, or just share his feelings about life, about family, about God. It's not that he was cold or a hard creature with no feeling. My dad was a sensitive, caring man who's no different in most ways than many of us. He just never was taught the need for intimacy in relationships. The generation they grew up in, they worked hard and they provided for their family, and that was their way of showing, I love you. They weren't taught that sometimes you need to say, I love you. Sometimes you need to show, I love you. Today, men have come quite a way since then. But yet, the things that matter the most, very little has changed for the average household. I've come to believe that one of the most important things that a man can give to his child is a godly example of intimate relationships.
Amen.
And of course, first and foremost would be a personal, intimate relationship with God. And the reason a relationship with God is so important is because that is what sets the stage for other successful relationships. And other intimate relationships are very important. This text that we read a moment ago says, for men with open commitment to the living reality of God's person and His presence. The phrase, lift up holy hands without anger or disputing, simply seeks a man who's discovered his confidence in his relationship with the Lord.
Hallelujah.
You know, a lot of men, when they come to the house of God, it's hard for them to raise their hands because they weren't taught that. But if you have a relationship, a real relationship with God, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm not talking about a bunch of tradition, I'm talking about if you really fell in love with God.
Amen.
You really understand who He is. You know, when He asked Peter, who do men say I am? And He says, you're the Christ. And He says, flesh and blood has not revealed that to you, but by my Father. And church, when you get a real revelation of who God is, you really fall in love with Him. You know what? It's not hard to raise your hand once you realize all that He's done for you, and how much He loves you, and how much He's forgiven you. Okay? This is a man who doesn't come strutting into God's presence, the one who comes with holy hands. Hands that have something happen to them. They've been transformed. This is a man who comes to the Lord with an openness and a recognition, knowing that he is received and accepted by the Father, Almighty God. You know, a lot of men believe, I've just done so much, there's no way God can love me. There's no way God can forgive me. Church, Paul said, I'm the chiefest of sinners, and look what God did in His life. And some of you sit here, you feel like I did. I felt like I was Paul, the chiefest of sinners. How can God forgive me? But like she was talking this morning, when He did forgive you, it's like the weight of the world was lifted off your shoulders. You were changed and you were transformed. Amen? Paul is saying this. He said, I wish men were like this. Men of faith and men of self-control. Men who would not doubt and who would not be possessed by anger. You know, Proverbs 29:11 says, fools give vent to their rage, but wise bring calm in the end. Amen. Sometimes as men, we think the louder, the more bolder, the more violent we can get, that's showing that you're a man. No, it's when you can control your own spirit. In Proverbs 16:32, it says, he who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who captures a city. If you can control your own spirit, he says you're more in control. You're more mighty than someone who can take a whole city. Think about that this morning. Amen? This is a biblical call to a real relationship, to a friendship with God, to be able to call Him for everything. It's a call to an intimate friendship with God. I like the way Jack Haber describes it. He said, it's as if God drank coffee and you'd feel comfortable coming to him, and you'd pour him a cup, and then as you sat there, you'd pour out your heart as well. Imagine just the two of you, God and Son, sitting there over coffee as friends, sharing the deepest thoughts of your heart. Think about that. Sometimes, it's hard for men to share their feelings with other people. But God wants to have such a relationship with you that you feel comfortable coming and pouring your heart out. Not that He don't already know.
Amen.
But you come and you feel comfortable that you can pour your heart out to God. And you can tell Him anything and tell Him everything. God knows things about me that nobody else knows. And I'm comfortable with that because I'm comfortable with my relationship with Him. Amen? A man with a real personal relationship with God will learn that his walk with God allows for such a pouring out. It allows for an emptying of pride. Sometimes us men, we're just stubborn. We're so prideful. Sometimes God has to allow things in our lives to humble us. Amen? An emptying of anger. Some of us, you may be asked, well, but you can come to God and you can pour your anger out. Guess what? He'll still love you and still forgive you. You can come to God and you can share things about lust. You can share things that or anything else that's eating at you. Amen? And God, He doesn't see it as you're just flinging stuff in His face, or like you're putting Him at fault, or like your failures have made it impossible to be up front with Him. Actually, this pouring out is learn to cast all your care upon Him, for He cares for you in 1 Peter 5:7. As men and as fathers, when our wives come to us, our children come to us, we want to fix it. We want to make it right. Sometimes, especially wives, when wives come to you, they don't always expect you to fix it. Sometimes they just want you to listen. Amen? But we as men, we feel like we've got to fix it. And then when we can't fix it, we can't do anything about it, then we'll go to God. But God is saying, come to me first. If you put Him first, everything else after that is blessed. And so many times we're trying to get the blessing by doing it our way instead of doing it God's way. Amen? Thank you, Lord. There's a big difference between simply being saved, as great as that is, and walking with God in friendship. When we have that kind of relationship, God becomes included in everything in your life. Most people think, and this was my mentality when I was going to church before, I believe God was this little white-haired man on the throne, and one of these days we was all going to get to go to heaven. That's what it was all about. I didn't realize until I really got saved and got into the Word of God that God is interested in everything in your life. Every choice, every decision that you make, God wants to be in it. Because He says the steps of a righteous man are ordered of the Lord. Well, He can't order if you don't let Him lead you and guide you. And listen to me, I've been on both sides, and it's a whole lot better letting God lead you and guide you than trying to do things on your own. Amen? Now, this face-to-face kind of relationship is what is at the center of Christ's heart for men. And note how Jesus, after walking with His disciples for 3 years, one day He said, "No longer do I call you servants, but I call you friends." Think about that. You're friends with God. I've had a lot of friends in my past. And I've had some good friends. I've had some bad friends. But I've never had a friend like God. And that's the kind of relationship Jesus wants to have with each and every one of us, church. But the problem is that just about everything in our lives as men seems to work against that. And there are three things that seem to work against the possibility to really have a confident relationship with God, which enables us to have that type of relationship with our children and with other men. It's hard to have a relationship with your family and with your other men if you don't know how to have a relationship with God. Amen? Number one is the painful absence of models. And when I speak of role models, I wonder how many of you men here have ever had someone to follow. Someone you could watch in your early years about which you could have said, that's how a godly man is supposed to live. Did you have anyone to watch who showed you a model of a man with peaceful, genuine confidence in his relationship with God and his relationship with others? Someone about whom you could say, I want to be just like him. You ever said that about anybody? You ever had that in your life? Thinking, I want to be just like him. You know, and I've heard a lot of horror stories of authority figures, potential role models who failed. They were fathers and they were teachers who violated or brutalized people, or relatives who mocked or neglected family members. Or maybe you had a good role model, but you didn't have the opportunity to get close enough. There was a quiet distance between you and him. Like seeing the Grand Canyon, but never being able to cross it. A nice view, but no touch and no warmth. Maybe some of you grew up with a woman as your only leadership model. And not to minimize the worth of a woman's influence, but you still didn't have a man to show you the way to manhood. And without that, many men don't know how to respond as godly men to life situations, or even how to be a good role model for their own children. The second thing is ever-growing presence of corruption. Most of you being here this morning, you'll go to a place of business tomorrow. And most will be surrounded by the lewd, the corrupt, the foul. It may be pornographic, it may be a death calendar, obscene posters, crude speech, sexual innuendos, or coarse jokes. The air is blue with profanity or suggestiveness, and impurity is always present. Or the corrupt may be the business-oriented. The boss may want you to sell a half-truth or fudge on accuracy and reported figures. Even if you are a man who wants to walk with God, the surroundings almost make the corruption ooze into your very soul. Some of you want to be the man of God. You want to be what God's called you. But because of all the things you're around, and I know how it is. I've worked construction for 45 years. I know how it can be. It's hard to stand and live for God sometimes when all this negative stuff around you, all this corruption is around you all the time. We were on the job site one time, we had some Christian music going, and it was just blaring out the new house it was doing. And there were some guys working down the street, and they'd walk by and they'd look at the house like, what the heck is going on in there? Because you don't expect that on the construction site. You expect profanity and all kinds of things going on. And sometimes it's really hard, church. But God says, this is what we need. We need men that's going to stand up. Men that are going to be lights to the world. Men that's going to stand up for what is right and what they believe and not be moved by what everybody else is doing around about them. Amen? And the third thing is the consciousness of our own failure. All of us sin. We all fail. Our sins may have been private, may have been shielded, or they may be very public and very well known. And we may have already come to the Lord, repented, and know we've been forgiven, but still in the mind are those scenes of failure. The devil always wants to take you back to your greatest failures. But God forgives, church. The trouble is sometimes we can't forgive ourselves.
Amen.
But you know what? If Almighty God is willing to forgive us, then we need to learn to forgive ourselves. And this is where the intimate friendship with God, but also with other men, is so necessary. We need the presence of one who will listen. We need someone who will understand. We need someone who will be able to help us as we allow God to heal, restore, and bring victory in our lives. One of the greatest voids in the church is men who not only have a relationship with God, but also who are open to developing real, intimate relationship with one another. One that will be an example to the children and an example to the world. Amen. You know, most of the time we come into church, we know each other by name, and we say hi to each other, give them a hug, whatever. But we don't have that intimacy. We don't have that relationship that God really wants us to have as men. You know, some women don't have much trouble. They can get intimate pretty easy. But men, when you start talking about intimacy, man, men just turn off. I don't want to hear all that stuff. It's kind of like when your wife says, we need to talk, and then, oh, Lord. Amen? I want to read you this story, and this kind of illustrates what I'm trying to share. There was Tom, Jim, and Steve who had been hunting buddies for ages. Every chance they got, they would go out for deer, ducks, and birds. Whatever the season, they would hunt together. And each of them thought of each other as best friends. They'd often say they could talk about anything they wanted in this group, until one Friday afternoon when all that changed. Tom tells a story. I remember it was Friday, we were all going to take off work at noon so we could drive out, set up camp, and be ready to go first thing in the morning hunting. I had a four-wheel drive truck, so the plan was that I would pick everybody up. Steve lived the farthest out, so we always picked him up last. As it turned out, I didn't get away from work as early as I hoped, and by the time I got to gym, we were running about an hour late. We pulled up in front of Steve's place and honked a couple of times. Usually he'd come running out, yelling about us being late, but this time there was no sign of him. I saw his gear back by the garage, and I thought maybe he didn't hear us. Jim stayed in the truck while I went around to get him. He was in the backyard, and he was dead. He'd taken a shotgun, put the muzzle in his mouth, and with a piece of wood, pushed the trigger down and blew the back of his head away. He left a note near his body. It said, "I'm sorry, there's no one to talk to." At first, I just got angry. How could he do this? How could he say there was no one to talk to when there was me? And I felt like I could have helped him no matter what it was. At least I thought I could. And only later did it hit me that I didn't really know if we could really talk about anything or not, because we never really talked about much that was personal. I spent a lot of time thinking about how much I was responsible for what Steve did, because I wasn't the kind of friend that he needed. I think I know what Steve meant when he wrote, "There was no one to talk to." As close as I thought we were, I've come to see that we were never there for each other to talk to. Or we were there to do things with. We'd hunt, we'd fish, drink, play cards, but we were never there to talk about the things we were feeling. The things that make you wonder whether or not life is worth living. I think now that what we call friendship wasn't really anything more than a casual and comfortable kind of acquaintance where we shared certain things at certain times, but we never shared ourselves. Maybe all relationships are like that. But he said, lately I really try to be more open with people, especially men. I've tried to build the kind of friendship that Steve needed, because I believe I needed that too. So far it hasn't worked out too well. Men get anxious when you talk about feelings. And it seems the harder I try to get close, the faster guys pull away. And maybe I'm going too fast, but for Pete's sake, if you go too slow, you may never get there, or when you do, it's too late, like it was Steve. And although this is a tragic story, many of us can identify with these men. We have a desire for strong friendship with other men. Friendship that can withstand the test of hard times. One that will make a difference in all the times of our lives. Yet we're frustrated with what actually happens. Some of us, like Tom, we have a lot of acquaintances. We're open to strengthen these relationships, but we don't know how. Others of us are not even so sure there's a real need for these kind of relationships. Till others have an uncomfortable feeling of being isolated, and they're looking for ways to get connected to other people. Some of us enjoy close relationships in the past, and we want to establish some new ones in the future. There are three basic levels of relationship. And I want each of you, especially the men, to see which typifies your relationships. Number one is acquaintance. This is when you know another man only because of proximity. He might be your neighbor. You may talk to him over the fence, you may borrow a ladder or whatever. But if he would move away, you'd no longer have any contact with him. Men have numerous acquaintances at work, in the neighborhood, church, on a ball team, in-laws, outlaws, friends of your wives that you meet at get-togethers. These are relationships of convenience, courtesy, and just for general politeness. The conversation usually stays on safe topics like weather, work, economy, home repairs, topics that have low emotional content. You know, most of y'all know this, but usually when you get some men together and they get to talking, and it's usually about, like you say, just topical things, nothing personal, nothing deep, nothing close, nothing emotional. And then you go home and your wife asks you, "What'd you talk about?" "Oh, not much." And with men, that's what they really know. A woman, they have a conversation, and you go home and you ask them what they said, you'll know everything, every word that was said through the whole conversation. They won't miss one detail. Amen? But men are not like that. And what God is telling us, He wants us to open up with Him. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. A strong man is someone that can admit his weaknesses and that he needs help. A stubborn, unwise man is someone who thinks he doesn't need nobody. Okay? And God wants us to have these relationships with one another. Not just acquaintances. We come to church, we see each other. He wants us to develop a personal, intimate relationship. To the point that where you know, no matter what happens, James has got my back. Gary's got my back. Don's got my back. Kenneth's got my back. Or I've got their back. You hear what I'm saying? Not just like, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. But I'm talking about knowing when there's something wrong. Okay, Gary, there's something going on in your life. I need to help minister to you. What can God do to, or anybody else in here? But knowing them well enough to know that you need, when you're needed and when you want to be there, and they need someone to talk to. You know, when well-known evangelist, he failed. And one of the reasons he failed was because he felt like there was no other minister that he could go talk to. He felt like his sin was so great that he couldn't be real with anybody else, because if they would expose him and destroy everything that happened. Church, we need to be comfortable, especially in the house of God. Maybe not out there, but especially in the house of God. We need to be comfortable with one another. We can trust one another. We can talk to one another. If you can't talk to your brother or sister in Christ, who are you going to talk to? Number 2, companionship. Companionship is kind of like the Three Musketeers. They were a group of men who trusted each other to do the tasks that were set before them. And while they never had a discussion about their vulnerabilities or emotional struggles, they did have a great time going into battle together. Companions share a task or goal that they schedule time to do. Men join softball leagues or service organizations or clubs or other groups to get them together with other men of similar interests. Tom and Jim and Steve were companions. We used to have a group of people that we'd run around before I got saved, and we were companions. We were like the Three Musketeers. You see one of them, you saw the other. Kenneth was involved in that too.
I'm trying to save him.
He was trying to save him. Thank God it worked, Kenny. But we hung out together. We did things together. But we never ever shared anything real personal, because we saw that as a weakness. We don't want to hear about your problems. You know, just man up. Just suck it up. It'll be okay. It'll work itself out. But we never really got into the one another. Level 3 is intimate friendships. These are relationships where the real you is known by another person. It's so hard to let people know who you really are. That makes you vulnerable. And especially as men, we don't like that vulnerability. We like to be in control. Not only does this person feel free to tell you everything, you can also tell him everything. This comes as a result of respect, trust, and time spent together. I have a friend, he's dead now, and he was that kind of individual. And Kenny was that kind of individual. I could tell Kenneth anything, and I knew it was going to stay right there. I knew I could trust him with it. And this other guy, he was the same way. I had one friend who was a friend, but when I get in trouble with my wife or we want to go out to the bars or something, he's like, yeah, I don't blame, that's what I do. He was a yes man. And then I had this other friend come in, you know it's going to cost you, you know it's not right. And I didn't want to hear that. I said, just agree with me. Go, I like this guy over here, but just agree with me. Let's just go get drunk and have some fun, you know? But there's one guy who would tell me the truth. And like I say, Kenneth is a friend that does the same thing. There's been times I wanted to lay hands on George suddenly. Ken said, oh, you don't want to do that. He had one just like I did, so he knows it. The church is very uncommon among men because it requires a large investment of time, attention, trust, and conversation, self-disclosure. Take some time to develop an intimate relationship, church. And church, that is so the opposite of our normal male competitiveness. We just feel like we're being weak if we let some. I tell James my weaknesses or Gary my weaknesses, or that just makes me less a man. No, it doesn't. This is what God wants us to do. If I show my weaknesses, you know what? They're going to open up and be able to show their weaknesses. And this is what we started with. We have a men's meeting at least once a month here at the church. And we started out with a Bible study. But I told Gary, I want to take this in a different direction. I want men to be able to come to this men's meeting. And I want them, and we did last time we had the service. I want men to be able to open up and share things that mean something to them. You know, we can study the Bible, we read the Bible, we have services here Wednesday night, Sunday morning, Sunday. But what I wanted to get onto a personal level. Things that really men are concerned about. Things that men won't talk to anybody else about. That's what I want. Because that builds bonds and that builds relationships with one another. Amen? While it's uncomfortable for most men, the closeness and oneness that results is very valuable, church. And this morning, I want to challenge each man here. I want to challenge you, first of all, to seek out and develop a relationship with Jesus that goes beyond just going to church. That goes beyond just making sure you're going to heaven. One where there's time spent in fellowship and communion, where thoughts and feelings are shared. One of trust and one of commitment. You know, usually a distance from God is often due to a disruption in trust, such as sin or disappointment. God wants us to be able to trust Him, church. To get to know Him. It's no good if all you do is go to church and learn what I tell you about God. You need to find out about who He is for yourself. You need to be able to hear Him talk to you. Well, I was going to hear God talk. The Bible says, my sheep know my voice. Amen. God wants to talk to you. He doesn't just talk to the preacher. He wants to talk to you. Amen. He knows you. If He knows how many hair you got on your head, He knows you pretty personally. Amen? So God wants to have that relationship with you. He wants you to talk to Him. Amen? He wants you to trust Him. Second, I want to challenge you to develop a godly, intimate relationship with other men who share your common biblical beliefs. Men who you can have fellowship with. Men who will listen. Men who will encourage. Sometimes men who will even counsel you. Men who's going to be a faithful friend. And third, I want to challenge you to share these needs and important truths with your children. Our children need to see this, church. They don't just need to see acquaintances or companions. They need to see that men can have intimate relationship with one another and still be men. Jesus had a relationship with His disciples. He ate with them, slept with them, He shared with them. Yet He was the greatest man that ever lived. It was not a weakness, it's a strength. Especially if you have a son, no matter what the age may be. That son needs to see, because he's going to grow up and be like you. You've always heard the old saying, it's not what you tell them, it's what you do that's going to last. Teach your son that intimacy with God and with others is not for sissies. It's a matter of emotional health and well-being. And as we saw with Steve, at times it may be a matter of life and death. We need one another. In closing, I hope each man you that are here this morning have a very special Father's Day. I hope you get the appropriate recognition. And a gift would be nice as well. But most of all, I hope you'll give yourself the greatest gift that you could ever receive. An intimate relationship with the Savior. An intimate relationship with a Christian brother. And the ability to teach your child the way to wholeness in the process. Today is the day men begin today. Amen? I want to read this to you and I'm closing, I promise. Colossians 3:13, it says, forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. When divorce shatters your family, how can you help your children? First, stop talking about who doesn't accept them and surround them with people who do. As a parent, your love can go a long way toward compensating for another's neglect. Explain that sometimes people grow together, other times they grow apart. Remind them that Ken and Barbie are just dolls and prepare them to live in the real world. Encourage them to be strong, not self-pitying. As they get older, teach them that if they meet someone they have to change in order to love, they haven't met the right one. When love is right, it can live with strengths and weaknesses under the same roof because love covers a multitude of sins. Real love covers a mistake like an insurance policy covers a driver in an accident. Don't use your child as a weapon to get back at one another. Be sure they understand that you are the one who got divorced, not them. Explain that someone can be unsuited as a companion but still be a good parent. When you take away the blame, you take away the shame, and everybody can move forward. Bitterness is a thief, but you don't have to let it steal your peace, your creativity, your song, or your hope for a better future. Remember, that was then, this is now. There must be a now for you and your children, so let it begin today. God's promise is, I'm about to do something new, so you can start over and rebuild. Amen? Give God praise and glory. Church, I know this is different than maybe what you expected for Father's Day. I know it was a lot different than what we did last Sunday. But I'm hoping there was some fertile soil here this morning. I hope you heard what the Spirit is saying to you this morning. God wants a relationship with you, but He also wants us to have a relationship with one another. If you've got something going on inside, don't end up like Steve and think you have nobody to talk to. There are men here that want to make themselves available so that you can come, you can share, and you can talk. And I, for one, I don't care what you've done, what's happened in your life, it ain't no worse than anything that I've done. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt for it. So don't ever feel like, well, I can't talk to the pastor. No, he's a pastor. He don't know what I'm going through. I'm still a man. I'm still human. I know what you're going through. Okay? So open up to one another. Talk to one another. Develop a relationship with one another. All that's going to do is just cause this church to become stronger and stronger and stronger. You know, a lot of churches you go to, there's more women than there are men. A lot of times parents don't even come, they just drop the kids off. But when you get men to stand up and become the spiritual head of their household like you're supposed to, you're going to see a change. Amen? So I hope you heard this morning. I hope you have a heart that you want to develop it. You know, David and Jonathan had a relationship. And some of these modern scholars try to say they were gay. They weren't gay. They just had a very intimate relationship. They were there for one another. They loved one another. And God wants us to do that, church. Put our differences aside. We're not going to agree on everything. You weren't raised the way I was raised. I wasn't raised the way you were. There's things that God's still changing in your life. Things God's still changing my life. But that don't mean we can't agree on what we can do and build on that. And I promise you, if you'll open up to Him and open up to one another, you're going to see your relationships change with your family, with your wife, and with your children. Amen? Be the kind of man Jesus wants you to be. Be sincere, be honest, and be open. Amen? You'll stand, please.